We're going to start with the book of Micah, and it says, "Hear now what Yahweh is saying. Arise, strive with the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Arise and strive with the mountains." Remember that mountains represent kingdoms, leaders, the patriarchs. Hills represent nations and the matriarchs. And let the hills hear your voice. Here, remember, kind of bringing back part of what we've spoken about in the previous studies. Micah means he who is like Yahweh. Well, not completely, for it only has the letter Hey, which represents the whole name Yahweh. In fact, right here we have it here. So me who is like the Ruach, the spirit, represented by the Hey, and obviously, like I said, the name Yahweh, which has two letter Heys. So who is like Yahweh, which is a representation, this prophet, of Michael, the Malach, who would come as the last in the end times. So we already saw a lot about that in the previous chapters. I bring that back to this one because here we have the verb kum, which is connected to Joseph, the ancestor of the one who would come as the last, the ancestor of how Michael pretty much would come genetically into this earth, as we see throughout scriptures and the prophets. So this verb is the one used by Joseph when he had the dream in which the brothers, represented by the wheat that they were that they were harvesting during the time of it, that it all bowed down to him while his would be raised, as here where it says arise. So we have here kum. So kum is a word that is connected to that prophecy of a descendant of Joseph being kum, or arising, while the other tribes would bow down as he dreamt it. So in Judaism, they speak of the Messiah ben Yehuda, or Messiah ben David, and the Messiah ben Joseph. And when it comes to Messiah ben Joseph, that is one of the things that they mention, and I agree with, regarding this verb and how it is connected to the coming of the last, or as they would say, Messiah ben Joseph. So here we see it. It's pretty much the first thing he says. Kum, strive with the mountains, reap et haharim, which can be seen as, let me just show it here in the concordance. Contend, you see how it has different connotation before it just says here strive right here. But then when we go to the word reap, it says strive, contend, physically with words, conduct, made complain, quarrel. So the last will stand up, just like the 144,000 must stand up, arise, and contend with the kingdoms, with the world. And then it says, and let the hills hear your voice. And let them hear, the hills, your voice. Kolcha. It's interesting that, well, it may be because of the fact that it is the ending, but this would be in the masculine because of the cha and not just ach. Well, that's just the way it would end with, according to who it was the prophet speaking to. So normally when it speaks about the people as a nation, it would speak in the feminine, for it is the congregation, the female, the wife of Messiah. while on the other hand, when it would speak in the masculine, it refers to a leader, to a head individual. So in this case, not only we had the kum, which is prophetically connected to the coming of Ben Yosef, the son of Yosef, contending, for he, remember that the name Israel was given to Jacob, for he contended with Elohim and with men, and he overcame. So he represents he who will overcome, he who goes conquering and to conquer, which in the end in Hebrew, it is the same word. It's just the translation that had used different words for the same one in Hebrew. But anyways, so he will get up, and when I say he, it will be the last and the 144,000 as individuals, each in their own right, we could say, through Mashiach, of course, will have to get up in their own life and start contending with everything that the world offers, not in the sense of fighting like some people actually end up doing it, but spiritually, for we are not in a war against flesh and blood, but against authorities, right? Against the principalities, against ruach of the of wickedness. So he would come, which is a prophecy. He would get up just like Joseph, contend with the kingdoms, the mountains, and he will make his, like I was saying, call, his voice. Remember that Yahushua HaMashiach the first, Ben Yehuda, he came through David, yet he is the root of David, for he is the word of Yahweh, the word. So the word is first, and then comes the voice, just like the arm and then the hand, the gate or the door, and then the good shepherd, first and last, the Kohen Hagadol, and then the Melech. And that's why this word kum is connected to king, to the king who would raise up from the midst of his brethren, as prophesied also in Deuteronomy, when it was told to Moshe that Yahweh would raise a prophet like him from the midst of his brothers. So, kum, contend, and then the voice. Yahushua is the word, the last is the voice. So let the hills hear your voice. Interesting, like I was saying, that mountain will be the kingdoms, connecting it to the world. And it's saying, arise and contend with the kingdoms, with the world. But then it says, let the hills, as in the matrix, like I said, or the congregations, the females, the nations, hear your voice. For it is written that the sheep listen to the voice of the good shepherd and they follow, for they recognize. My point is that he comes to fight with the world, but to call the people to repentance, to the truth. And those who hear the voice will follow, for they are his sheep, his flock. I hope that's understood. So then I'll continue. Hear, O you mountains, the controversy of Yahweh. This is interesting, right? Because you know how people nowadays, how could I say, because they love controversy when it comes to seeing it, like reality TV, all those things that they do just for whatever they feel when they see it. But as we know, since we are in a world that loves evil and hates good, that calls good evil and evil good, then the truth is controversial. And that's why what we do is hated by most, because the controversy that they look for is well, it depends. If it doesn't affect them, that's when they love it and they joke about it and they mock people and whatever. And for it may be entertaining depending on what it may be. But when it comes to the truth, it's controversial because it affects everybody. So when somebody doesn't want to follow the truth and the truth comes for them, they will, those who do not want to follow the truth and recognize and repent, they will try to hold on to everything they can. And nowadays, the world is giving everybody like that weapons to go against that which they hate, like whatever offends them for whatever reason it may be, banned. So nowadays, a lot of the information about truth is seen as controversial, and even more so to the point that algorithms are made in YouTube and every other platform so that the truth is hidden and sometimes banned all the way, while they allow a bunch of things that should be banned for real. Like, well, I ain't even gonna say, but a bunch of things that I wonder how is that still on online? How are they? How is mainly how can children just go and look for it and find it, while a lot of people that are looking for the truth cannot find it now because they just block the videos and shadow ban, as they say. So here, O you mountains, the controversy of Yahweh, and you everlasting foundations of the earth. For Yahweh has a controversy with his people, and he shall reprove Israel. So look how, going back here now, what Yahweh is saying: arise, contend or strive with the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, O you mountains. So you see how it said, and I was talking about the masculine, hear your voice, and then we see that it is Yahweh himself speaking pretty much, because he has a controversy with the world. For the first is the word, the last is the voice. So the last comes to let the world know what is the controversy, what is the issue. O you mountains, the controversy of Yahweh, and you everlasting foundations of the earth. For Yahweh has a controversy with his people, and he shall reprove Israel. My people, what have I done to you? And how have I wearied you? Answer me. Right? People, God, like throughout history, we can see because of the programming of the enemy, the influence, and the inclination to evil, ended up pretty much getting tired of the belief of faith, and they have their wrong reasons, but they all excuse the way they think about life and how far away they are from the scriptures. They try to justify with whatever it may be. So Yahweh asks, what have I done to you? Why are you so far away from me? Why do you leave me? Why do you now even claim you don't believe in me? Like, people don't realize that whatever has happened to each and every one of us is due to our actions, is due to whatever, and also it is necessary for whatever reason Yahweh knows. Sometimes we do know why it is necessary. We end up knowing eventually, or we will when the Father reveals every single thing, and we will be satisfied, more than satisfied, about each and everything that we went through. So we cannot allow our flesh and our feelings to get control of us and make us think that Yahweh is in the wrong, because that's just completely illogical for many, many reasons that we know and that we recognize when we're doing good. But when something happens, that is when the enemy attacks, obviously with doubt and a bunch of other things. But we need to understand everything is for the good of those who love Yahweh, So if we really love him, we should understand that everything will be fine, more than fine, great. So, my people, what have I done to you, and how have I wearied you? Answer me. For I brought you up from the land of Mizraim, right? Egypt. For I brought you up from the land of Mizraim, and I ransomed you from the house of bondage, right? He saved us from slavery, and not just physical one, but spiritual, which is even a greater redemption. For he saved us from our sins. For we know that he who sins is a slave to sin. So Yahushua, that's why he came and said, I am the truth, and whoever believes in the truth, whoever knows the truth, right, he shall be free. So it is through Mashiach, Yahushua, the truth, that we are truly free. And that is when we are saved from Egypt, Mitzrayim. For I brought you up from the land of Mizraim, and I ransomed you from the house of bondage. And I sent Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam before you. So you see how Yahweh goes all the way back to that moment. Because, well, there are several reasons, of course. One of them, because not only did he create us, but then when we fell in sin and therefore slavery, he came and redeemed us. So that day of redemption is even greater, because when we were born or created, we were born into a lie, which could end up being worse than not being created at all, right? To follow in the lie and end up in an eternity of confusion. Instead, Yahweh gave us the redemption from that confusion and led us to true life, eternal life. So the redemption from Egypt, which represents the redemption through Mashiach, the Lamb, is what he starts with when it comes to making Israel understand their issues, right? Understand our issues and how we went astray, how some were born, but we even went farther, right, to our evil deeds, or our sins, whatever they may have been. So other than that, remember that we're talking about how Micha represents the last, Michael, who will arise, Kum ben Yosef, to contend with the world, to be the voice that the hills, the congregation will hear. For it is Yahweh himself being angry, and let him then know why he is angry, pretty much the controversy of Yahweh. And then he starts with, I sent Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam before you, which is Moshe and Aharon as the two witnesses, a representation of the two witnesses, and Miriam, which represents the congregation, right, which is called the Virgin in Revelation 12. Interestingly enough, same name as the virgin who gave birth to Mashiach. So Moshe, Aharon, and the congregation. These three, like I said, the 144,000 plus the two witnesses, are the ones that are telling the world what to do, why they should repent, yet the world will continue to rebel. So my people, what have I done to you, and how have I wearied you? Answer me. For I brought you up from the land of Mizraim, and I ransomed you from the house of bondage. And I sent Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam before you. My people, right, as in the many, those who will have to die at the end. Remember, please, what Balak, sovereign of Moab, counseled, and what Bilam, son of Beor, answered him from Shittim to Gilgal, in order to know the righteousness of Yahweh. So this is also mentioned in the book of Revelation, which is important. Let me go real quick. So when talking to Pergamos, well, I'll read the whole thing. And to the messenger of the assembly of Pergamos write, he who has the sharp two-edged sword says this, I know your works and where you dwell, where the throne of Satan is. The throne of Satan was in Pergamos, according to Revelation. And when we check history, the temple that was at Pergamos was the temple of Zeus. So we know that Zeus is Satan. I know your works and where you dwell, where the throne of Satan, Zeus, is. And you hold fast to my name. So they had that good thing. They have the name of Yahweh, even though they were at a place where the throne of Satan is. So that connects with the congregations that do have the name Yahweh, but they still say God, because they have a throne for Satan in their church, their building, even though they know the name Yahweh. Even there are some who don't even say the name Yahweh, even though they know it, right? And well, that's more the case, really. But nowadays, there are several people who have the name Yahweh. They mention it, they use it in their teachings, but then they say God, they say Lord. So they still have a place for Satan, as in the throne of Satan. And you hold fast to my name. And then it says, and did not deny the belief in me. So they have the testimony of Mashiach, but they do not have the word, which is the name of Mashiach. I hope that's understood. They do have the belief in Mashiach, but they do not have the name Yahushua. Even in the days in which Antipas, who represents the last, was my trustworthy witness, who was killed near you, where Satan dwells. But I hold a few matters against you, because you have there those who adhere to the teaching of Balaam. This is what Micah is referring to right here. The teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat food offered to idols, and to commit whoring. Right? So obviously, fornication is wrong in the spiritual, since it is also mentioned in eating food offered to idols. That is doctrine for what we study, is food for our soul, but doctrines of demons, food offered to idols, and this committing whoring, pretty much idolatry. Fornication spiritually is idolatry. In the physical, since Balaam saw that there was no way he could curse Israel, he advised Balak to send women to entice the men to fall into fornication, adultery, so on and so forth. And that's how they ended up falling in sin, to the point that they were unprotected from the enemy. So that's when the enemy could attack. So through sinning of the flesh, they ended up being vulnerable to the attacks of the enemy. And that's how Balaam convinced or counseled Balak to destroy Israel, for they were untouchable, no matter what curse they were sending to them. So going back to Micah, my people, remember please what Balak, sovereign of Moab, counseled, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered him from Shittim to Gilgal, in order to know the righteousness of Yahweh. Right? Pretty much the fact that Yahweh protects us. It is us, the ones who go away from his protection. We are the ones who reject that protection through our deeds. And that's when things happen. So we must be careful and stay firm. So in order to know the righteousness of Yahweh, also it's interesting that, just like it mentioned, Moshe, Aharon as the two witnesses, and Miriam as the congregation. Then we have Balak as the first beast, the world leader, the little horn, and Bilam, the false prophet, the second beast of Revelation 13. And then it says, verse 6, with what shall I come before Yahweh? With what shall I come before Yahweh? Bow myself before the high Elohim. Shall I come before him with ascending offerings, with calves a year old? Right? Bow myself before the high Elohim. Shall I come before him with ascending offerings, with calves a year old? You see, ascending offerings, that's verse 6. We go to verse 6 right here. Well, something interesting. Well, no, that was, well, here it says, with what? Bama, the ma, as I have said in the other studies, just like me of Micah, is connected to Mashiach, Yahushua the first, he who shows who is Yahweh. The ma represents the last, that is what. But anyways, the point here was that it says, with what shall I approach Yahweh? And then it says, by myself, bow myself before the high Elohim, shall I come before him, sending offerings, ascending offerings, that's what I was looking for. It says, be'olot, of the type of sacrifice called olah, ascending offering, as the how they are translating it here. But remember that that is a burning offering, like an offering through fire, so it would ascend through the smoke. And that is one of the 6 type of sacrifices, one of the 2 from those 6 that represent the sacrifice of the last. So pretty much making the contrast of, is not about coming to offer an animal for you, but to offer yourself, right, as a living sacrifice, like we see in the New Covenant. But when it comes to the last, pretty much is like another verse that we see from David that was a prophecy for Mashiach, and even for the last, when he says, I know that you don't like sacrifices, but you gave me a body, like saying, I will give myself. And that's what Mashiach pretty much did, and what the last also gets to fulfill, realize, understand, and do. So it says olot, when it says ascending offerings, with calves a year old. It says here, ve'agalim b'nei shana, sons of a year. Remember that the last who would go up as an olah comes as a calf, or well, as the ox. In mentioning a year old, just like, remember Mashiach, the lamb had to be 1 year old as well. Well, for it to be a lamb, it's from 1 year old. So mentioned here also in the sense of, just like the lamb was sacrificed in the past, now the calf must go through sacrifice as well. Is Yahweh pleased with thousands of rams or 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my being? Listen to that, how amazing and interesting I believe this verse is. Once again, is Yahweh pleased with thousands of rams or 10,000 rivers of oil? How can that please Yahweh, the creator of all, the one who doesn't need anything in the sense of our understanding of need? The one who can make anything from nothing. And that I just said regarding need, is because there's an interpretation which I find to be neat that Yahweh is the actual one who has needs. We don't need anything because whatever we need, we get from him. It is a perception that we have that we are individuals separated from the all that makes us think that we are lacking, not understanding his will, his plan, his purpose in everything. So he's the one who actually needs, in the sense that he needed company, so he made us. He is good and he needed to give, so he made us in order to give us life and give us, well, eternal life, and to give us everything that is good. So it is that need that you feel when you love one, that need to give to that person, to help that person, to make that person feel happy. And Yahweh is love, therefore he needed somebody to love. Right? And so in that sense, the true needs are within him, and that is why he makes everything and creates everything and does everything that he does. So I hope that was understood. But going back here, when it comes to matter, when it comes to our idea of need, he doesn't need a thing. He can do anything. He can make anything from nothing. So is Yahweh pleased with thousands of rams or 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn? Right? And look how, let me see something. Like, right, the prophet Micah is talking here, and we know it is the Ruach through Micah, obviously, for he's a prophet. So we can see this verse as Yahweh himself saying, I will give my firstborn. I will send my firstborn to die for your sins. At the same time, the prophet remembering Abraham and saying, should I give my firstborn in order to fix everything? Is that what I must do? But also remember that the last, even though he comes second, Yahweh promised to him to make him a firstborn, just like when Jacob became the firstborn and Ephraim became the firstborn, just like others who went through the same thing. So now he mentions firstborn, not just only born or the only begotten, right? In this case, he says firstborn. So shall I give my firstborn, which goes next to the calf, a year old, goes next to where we spoke about the verb kum, contending, the voice, and the mention of Moshe and Aharon. Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my being? Which was a thought of a lot of people, right? Back in the day, people who follow Baal, who follow Moloch, they went and sacrificed their children thinking they could pay and have a better life. And that is a clear contrast between what happened with Abraham, what came to him, the reason why Yahweh allowed it as a prophecy for what Mashiach would do, but Yahweh stopped him, while Moloch promotes the killing of babies. That Moloch, who is also called Baal, and therefore in English, Lord, which is the translation of Baal. So, shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my being? He has declared to you, O man, what is good. He has declared to you, O man, what is good. Let me see this verse. Higid lecha Adam matov. Because I trying to remember if it had to do with gematria. If I'm not mistaken, it was through the gematria of Adam, changing it to, for instance, the fact that the word Yahweh, when you write each letter, meaning Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, but you write it down like Yud would be the Yud, the Vav, and the Dalet, and then the Hey would be the Hey and the Aleph, right? So when you write the words then you get the numerical value 45. So remember how when you write Yahweh from top to bottom, you have the head, which is the Yud, the shoulders and the arms, which is the Hey, the Vav, right? And then the other Hey, which would be the legs. So in the image of the name Yahweh, and when you extend the letters and you write them down and then you count, you get 45, which is the numerical value of Adam. So the image of Adam, the fact that Adam was made in the image of Yahweh, is seen also through the numerical value. But that also connects to the Torah, obviously given by Yahweh. So pretty much the point here, amongst other things that can be deduced, would be that Yahweh told us everything that is good in the Torah. And we know that the Torah also is the book of knowledge of good and evil, meaning what I mean is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for it is what gives us that knowledge of what is good and what is evil. And also when we read in Genesis, we see everything that Yahweh said that was good, right? So he saw the creation and he saw that it was good each day. And then we have here, let me see, the verse 8. He has declared to you, O man, what is good, and what does Yahweh require of you but to do right, and to love in commitment, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. Here in Hebrew, it says, he has declared to you, Hagid Lecha, Adam, what is good. Remember that the last is the son of Adam. And in Hebrew, in Judaism, they say that it is Adam himself reincarnated, for the letter Aleph is for Adam, the letter Dalet is for David, and the letter Mem for Mashiach. So Adam, what is good? What's good? So here we see once again the Ma. You see, remember, like I said, me is the first, Ma is the last. Now, check this out. Remember what I said? Adam is numerical value 1, the Aleph, 4, the Dalet, that is 5, right? 1 plus 4. And then we have Mem, that will be 40. Therefore, we have 45, right? Adam is numerical value 45. When we look at Ma, we have Mem, which is once again numerical value 40, and we have Hey, numerical value 5, so 45. So there we see the connection of Adam with the Ma, right? The son of Adam, the last son of man. And remember that when Mashiach, the first, the root, was walking on this earth, he was called by somebody Tov, good. And he said, why do you call me good? There's only one who is good, and is the Father who is in heaven. So he rejected the title good, for the only one who is good is Yahweh. But there's another reason, and that is because Yahushua is the life, the tree of life. The last is the tree of knowledge of he who is good, is the tree of knowledge of the good. So Tov is a title for the last. For Yahweh said to Yahushua, sit at my right hand until I go and put your enemies as your footstool. So Yahweh is coming to make Satan fall to this earth during Revelation 12 and bring the goodness of the Father to the earth. So here we see Adam, the what, who brings that which is good. And that connects with the rest that we've read in the previous verses. So he has declared to you men, Adam, what is good through the Torah, through Mashiach, and now in the end times through the last. And what Yahweh seeks from you, that you do justice or righteousness, and that you love mercy. So that is what he's asking for from us. Not that you go and kill an animal in his name, not that you go and kill a baby, your own children, but that you go and do good to others, practice justice, righteousness, that you have mercy on your neighbor, on your enemy. If that is the case, for we know that there are certain enemies that won't receive mercy from the Father, and we can not be more merciful than he is. That's where we would fool ourselves, pretty much, as many have done in the past. So he has declared to you, O man, what is good. And what does Yahweh require of you but to do right? Also, and that just, well, I'll just mention it because I'm still trying to remember. And at the end, it might not be that huge of a deal, but I know that. And the problem is that they do mention this verse a lot in Judaism. And so I've seen it several times through the years, and I just cannot believe that I'm not remembering right now. But another thing that I was going to say, remember how I said 45, so that connects the Ma with Adam, for the son of Adam would be the Ma. Also, well, 45 plus 45, that's 90, which is the Sadiq, or the Sadiq, right? The righteous man. And then we have Tov, which is 17. Remember how I mentioned the word Kum connecting to Joseph and all that. This is another connection that is done because of the numerical value. When we go to Genesis 37, it says, and Yaakov dwelled in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. This is the genealogy of Yaakov. And then it says, Joseph being 17 years old. So the fact that the story begins with Joseph being 17, which is the same number of years that Yaakov lived happily, which were the last 17 years of his life. 17 is the numerical value of Tov. 9 plus 6 plus 2. So Joseph is the Tov. Joseph is the 17. That's why his story begins at 17. He represents the good of the father. That's why he would receive the good of his father, and his brothers were jealous and envied him, right? So that's another connection from Ben Yosef to Tov and the Ben Adam and all of that I already said. So he has declared to you, Adam, what is good. And obviously, I repeat, that has to do with the Torah. Is there for everybody. But when it comes to through his messengers, obviously there are many who brought awareness of the scriptures to the people, but mainly he himself doing it as the first and the last. And Eliyahu, of course. So he has declared to you, oh man, what is good. And what does Yahweh require of you but to do right and to love in commitment. Well, it said chesed, which is favor, love, mercy, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. The voice of Yahweh cries to the city. So once again, not the word, but the voice, right? Confirming over and over again about the prophecy at the end. The voice of Yahweh cries to the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. For we know that is part of what the last must do, as Mashiach himself prophesied in Genesis, in the John 17. And like also Yahweh prophesied several times, as in Exodus 33, the voice of Yahweh cries to the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. See your name. Obviously, one way is to write a name and for you to see it, but that is pretty much also having to do with the fact that the person of Yahweh is pretty much his name. So when he manifests, it is his name manifesting. So if you see the first, if you see the last, you are seeing pretty much his name, like the word written being Mashiach, the word himself in the flesh. So the voice of Yahweh cries to the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. Let me see verse 9. Call Yahweh la'id. Ikra vetushia. Ire shemcha. I think it would say fear your name. So let me see something here. Oh no, see your name. Yeah, it's just the verb is very similar. Sound knowledge, success, sound or efficient wisdom. Tushia. Interesting to see this word here. Let me see. It appears 12 times throughout scriptures. This is the last of all. The last time that this word appears. So most of the time it is translated as wisdom. We know Chokmah is the one that is used mostly as wisdom, or that is translated mainly as wisdom. Here we have wisdom, sound knowledge, success, sound or efficient wisdom. And I find interesting to see the word, or as you can see, it ends in Yah, right? So the first half of Yahweh, who gives us wisdom, for the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. But then we have here Tav Vav Shin. As you guys remember, in pictographic, the Tav is a cross. The Vav is a nail. So just here we have the cross and the nail, as in he who was nailed to the cross. Not only that, the Vav is also a man. So the man who was nailed to the cross. The Shin is a fire, therefore also represents change. So he, or the man who was nailed to the cross, brought change, the change of Yahweh, or the change of the people towards Yahweh. For Yahweh doesn't change, right? Just for no misunderstanding to happen. So also remember that the last letter of the alphabet is the Tav. So it represents the last who comes to seal the chosen few, as the Son of Man, being the fire of Yah. And the fire of Yah also represents wisdom, knowledge, understanding. So the last, who is the Son of Man, who comes for the 6th millennium as the fire of Yah, with the wisdom and knowledge of the man who was nailed to the cross to bring change for Yah. So I hope that was understood. So now with all of that said, let me read it again. The voice of Yahweh cries to the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. Right here. Yireh Shemcha. As in Yahweh Yireh. Remember Yahweh Yireh? He will see. They translate it as he will provide. So he will see your name. Who? Sound wisdom. He who has this will see the name. So those who have sound wisdom will be able to recognize the name manifested. Now look at how it says Yikra. Well, this has to do with the first statement, but then it says and sound wisdom. You see how in Hebrew the words, well, when you put a vav, which is pretty much like writing n to connect two words, it goes with the word itself. So we would have to add a vav right here, and in that case, it would be a nail, a cross, and a nail. So pretty much like the nail on each hand. And then we have Shia. So you see how they write and resourcefulness. But my point is that it's even clearer if you see it in pictographic, how there's a cross and two nails on each side. So, and he has declared to you, O men, what is good. And what does Yahweh require of you but to do right and to love loving commitment and to walk humbly with your Elohim? The voice of Yahweh cries to the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. Hear the rod and him who appointed it. That's powerful, because once again, it confirms everything that we've said already. For look how it says, hear the rod, right? You could say you can hear the rod when it's hit on the ground or something, like when the, yeah, also like that, when they hit you on the head. And in a way, that's pretty much how we could be taken when it comes to the king manifesting, like hear the rod, because now punishment is coming. Now you have to stay quiet and listen, etc. But also it is saying that the rod is the voice. And therefore, Yahushua, who is the Kohen, the priest, is the word, but the voice is the king, the Melech Gadol, for he is the rod. As Mashiach himself said that he would give the rod of iron, right? And that is to he who overcomes, he who goes conquering and to conquer. He receives the rod of iron in order to rule the nations. So we also saw in Micah, in the previous chapters, that Yahweh was talking about the king of Jerusalem and saying about the horn, the iron horn of Jerusalem. So once again, the voice of Yahweh cries in the city, and let sound wisdom see your name. Hear the rod and him who appointed it. Right? Obviously, hear the last and Mashiach who sent him, or hear the last and Yahweh who chose him. Hear the rod and him who appointed it. And are there still treasures of wrongness in the house of the wrong, and the short measure that is an abomination? Are there still treasures of wrongness in the house of the wrong, and the short measure that is an abomination? Right? The short measure, pretty much what the enemy uses, or well, anybody who is dirty at their dealings, when they do business or whatever, when they try to steal from the people. So they use for instance, in this case, a short measure, so that if they say they're going to buy a meter of whatever, you give them a little bit less because you're measuring with a shorter measure. So Yahweh hates that, and that's why we must not do it. We should not act like that. And if we have a business, we should do everything, no matter how bad it may seem for a while, for a little. We should do everything with integrity, and Yahweh will see that and bless that, or bless the person, even if the business for whatever reason does not go to what the person expected. Yahweh will see that and bring the blessing to another route, or however he wants. So are there still treasures of wrongness in the house of the wrong, and the short measure that is an abomination? Would I be innocent with wrong scales and with a bag of false weights? Right? We must be righteous, just, and we should judge ourselves like we judge others. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people do not see their own mistakes, their own issues, weaknesses, yet they are able to see everybody else's all the time in the best way, HD, 4K, right? But when it comes to themselves, no way they recognize they have an issue. And the problem is that they don't recognize it when you tell them, and they shouldn't be told. They should be like a person who believes in Yahweh and Yahushua should be able to see himself and study himself or herself in order to change what needs to be changed, instead of waiting for somebody else to tell you. And if it comes to that, we should be able to humbly accept it, understand it, and change it. Yet the enemy will put contention pretty much and use that as something to fight about and stuff like that. Because sadly, because of how the world is, how we were programmed, because of the inclination to evil, because of the flesh, it is hard when one allows him or herself to get to that point. And what I mean of having to have others to tell you instead of you realizing it for your own self, or studying yourself, examining yourself every day, even or at least when you go to bed, think about what you did that day, what you should change, etc. Would I be innocent with wrong scales and with a bag of false weights? For her rich men are filled with cruel unrighteousness, and her inhabitants have spoken falsehood, and their tongue is deceit in their mouth. Her inhabitants have spoken falsehood. Remember that Yahushua is the word. If they speak something else, they are speaking falsehood. For Yahushua, the word, is the truth. So not only false doctrines, but also the false name, of course. For her rich men are filled with cruel unrighteousness. And that's why so many evil has happened in the world, and there will be so much pain in the world in the time coming because of the rich men of the world. Not all, of course, I mean the richest. Those who have stolen everything they have pretty much one way or another. For her rich men are filled with cruel unrighteousness, and her inhabitants have spoken falsehood. And their tongue is deceit in their mouth. Everything is a lie. What they think of themselves, what they, how they speak to others, in contrast to what they think about others in their heart, the doctrine they follow, the names that they claim or invoke. Sadly, it's all about deceit, trying to appear something you're not, like social media and all of that. And their tongue is deceit in their mouth. So I shall strike you with a grievous wound. So I shall strike you with a grievous wound to lay you waste because of your sins. You shall eat, but not be satisfied. You shall eat, but not be satisfied, and your inside be empty. This obviously can happen in several ways, but isn't it interesting that one of the issues that is most common nowadays because of, well, just the way life is in general, is anxiety. And when people are anxious, they end up eating for no reason. So no matter how much they eat, they tend to not feel satisfied. So they want more and they want more. And a lot of it has to do with anxiety. So you shall eat, but not be satisfied. Also, sadly, when it comes to the spirit, as we know, people go and eat. They go to a church and receive and receive and eat. And they read this book and that book from this pastor and that pastor, yet they are not satisfied because they are not finding true food, true spiritual food. They're not finding the true doctrine. So they read a chapter and they don't understand what is being said. So they're not satisfied about it. They don't know how to deal with their lives, so they're not satisfied about what they're doing, about where they're going, etc. You shall eat but not be satisfied, and your inside be empty. And you shall store up but not save. And what you save, I shall give to the sword. And you shall store up but not save, and what you save, I shall give to the sword. So they will lose everything. Those who trust in their possessions, they will lose them. And as it says, like I always mention, because there are people who ask me, should we be storing up food? Should be like getting ready? And if you have the money, then go ahead and buy it and have it there for your family and for others that you may be able to help. But we need to understand that having the ability to do so monetarily doesn't mean you will be able to enjoy it or have it when needed. For if the person is wicked, no matter how much money they have, how much they have stored up, when the time comes, there's nothing they'll be able to do. And that will be taken by someone at the end. So we should act with righteousness, mercy, and he will protect us. Perhaps give us the money to buy it, or perhaps just get it at the moment we need it. But we need to trust. So you shall eat, but not be satisfied, and your inside be empty, and you shall store up, but not save. And what you save, I shall give to the sword. You shall sow, but not reap. You shall tread the olives, but not anoint yourselves with oil. Right? You shall do all the job, the work, but somebody will enjoy it. That's part of the punishment that the people have received throughout the time of the dispersion, right? Throughout the four corners of the earth. But that is coming to an end, and it will begin to happen to those who have taken advantage of his people. You shall sow but not reap. You shall tread the olives but not anoint yourselves with oil, and make sweet wine but not drink wine. For the laws of Omri, for the laws of Omri are strictly observed, and all the works of the house of Ahab, and you walk in their counsel. Therefore I give you for a ruin, and your inhabitants for a hissing, and let you bear the reproach of my people. So let me go and see these two names right here. Amri, the pupil of Yahweh, is what they say here. And they write Yahweh just because of the Yud, I guess, right? Like I was saying, in this case, it also appears as Amriya. So that's why it would be the servant of Yahweh, from Amar, to bind sheaves, to gather, but also to manipulate, deal tyrannically with, to treat as a slave. So you see how it says here, he was the one who succeeded the infamous Ahab, ruled for 12 years and succeeded by his infamous son Ahab. So the other way around, which is the one mentioned here second, right? Omri and Ahab. And we know Ahab was evil, like father, like son. Here we have Ahab, father's brother. Ah is brother, father is Av, so the brother of the father. And that would raise questions, right? Like to put that name to a child. So what are you saying? But anyways, so we know Ahab was evil, and so was Omri. Here we have, right, king of Israel, son of Omri, husband of Jezebel. So we know Jezebel, she is the harlot. She represents the great whore of Babylon. She is a manifestation of Lilith, etc. And she had control of Ahab. And they were both in the time of Eliyahu. So she made Ahab do a lot of things and even used his name when he didn't know, like Jezebel would do. So for the laws of Omri are strictly observed, right? They didn't observe the laws of Yahweh, but they observed. Remember how it said the servant of Yahweh? Now let me see something, because here we have 16, verse 16. You listen to the Hukot Omri. You see how we just saw the name in full, or the original name was Omriyah, but Yahweh took away the Hey because he's evil. So he took away the Ruach, represented by the letter Hey. So he's now just Omri. And that is the servant, right? And let me just go back here. Servant of Yahweh. We have here servant of Yahweh. Just like the Malach, Samael, Lucifer, Nazazel, they are angels. Therefore, they are servants, even if they wanted to rebel, right? And when we go to the root of Omri, we have a connection to manipulation and tyranny, just like the enemy ended up being tyrant. The enemy, that angel, that pupil or servant of Yahweh. So the Ruach was taken from him, represented by taking the letter Hey from the name Omriyah. So instead of following the commandments of Yahweh, they strictly observe the laws of Omri, a servant of Yahweh. So they don't follow the true mighty one and accept his commandments. Instead, they follow and listen to a servant, so to a malach. They ended up worshiping the wrong one. And all the works of the house of Ahab, all the actions, all the deeds of the house of Ahab. And we saw Ahab, father's brother. How interesting, because Samael pretty much is Belial. And he is the one of disobedience, the one who pretty much is against the Torah. But then we have Lucifer, represented here by Omri, who was to revered and worship Yahweh as a servant, as a pupil, but he rebelled. That's why Yahweh takes the hay away. And remember, here's where the hay was, just in case. So like Lucifer, and he is the father of Ahab, yet Ahab, his name is father's brother, like saying he's the brother of Omri. Interestingly enough, Azazel and Lucifer are brothers, for they are both children of Samael. Lucifer uses the Torah to accuse. So he does have used for the commandments, but his interpretation of the commandments is the wrong one, which is the one that he gave to the Jewish people to make it turn it into the Talmud, pretty much. So for the laws, the Hukod of Omri are strictly observed. They do observe those strictly, right? And all the works of the house of Ahab and all the deeds of Azazel, pretty much, of the brother, the deeds of the fallen angel, that remember that Azazel came down and taught the people what to do, how to sin. So they all follow the works of the house of Ahab. In the house, as in Azazel came down with a bunch of other angels, and they all taught falsehood and how to act wickedly. So not only that, Ahab was the husband of Jezebel, so she will be included here because she was part of the house of Ahab. So Lucifer, Azazel, and the great whore. For the laws of Omri are strictly observed in all the works of the house of Ahab, and you walk in their counsels. Sadly, the people walk in the counsel of the fallen angels instead of the counsel of Yahweh. Therefore, I give you for a ruin. Therefore, I give you for a ruin. It says in the counsels that I should make thee a desolation, ruin. And the inhabitants thereof a heathen. So pretty much a desolation, which goes with the abomination of desolation, but here we connect with Omri, and then hissing with Ahab. It says here, Shama, a waste, horror, appallment, just like Lucifer, who was the most beautiful, will become the most horrendous. And Shedeka, a hissing, whistling, mockery, as he said that he will mock them, laugh them, he will laugh about them, as it says in Psalms. And that's interesting because Azazel is the false Messiah. The true Messiah is Yahushua, who was represented by Yitzhak, which means he will laugh. So once again, Yahweh will laugh because he already won, and he will laugh at he who thinks to be or claims to be the Messiah. So it will be a mockery. That's how that chapter ends.